At this year's Belgian Grand Prix, 16 cars crashed and 16 drivers walked away unscathed. Why? Because for the last 30 years, the governing body of Formula One, the FIA, have been taking safety very seriously indeed.
So as well as trying to get Michael Schumacher to behave himself, the FIA, along with governments, motoring organisations and consumer groups throughout Europe, conduct crash tests. And those crash tests are known as Euro Ncap, or New Car Assessment Programme. The cars, all of them brand new, the crash test dummies and the research are all paid for not by the motor industry but by Euro Ncap, and that makes it a very independent test, which everybody agrees is a good thing.
It was necessary to bring in some sort of legislation to replicate real life in a head-on accident, and also what was needed was some sort of side impact legislation, because there were absolutely no rules at all about the resistance of a car to a side impact. And side impacts kill about 6,500 people a year in the European Union.
Not many people know this, but the existing car safety legislation dates back to 1974. And all the car manufacturers really had to worry about was that in an accident, the steering wheel didn't move back any further than 5 inches, and that was it. Which is exactly why the European Commission wants the safety rulebook rewritten.
The previous test was wholly ineffectual. And give you a measure of that, a parliamentary reply stated that if all cars were to the new legislative standard, 90,000 deaths and serious injuries would be avoided each year in Europe.
And that's the reason we're in Holland at the Dutch safety headquarters to watch 7 luxury cars being crash tested for both frontal and side impacts. Now, there's been much debate about crash testing. At the moment, the law demands cars should be driven at 30 miles an hour into a concrete block. From October the 1st, that test will be done at 35 miles an hour into a deformable barrier. But Ncap's tests are tougher still. They crash cars at a much more realistic 40 miles an hour.
And the dummies inside the cars aren't lifted out of CNA's front window. They're plugged up like the Pentagon, cost 35 grand each, and can measure acceleration, deceleration and internal injuries. Chummy Dummy here is as near as you'll get to Mr. Average. So sit back and join us as we watch £200,000 worth of brand new cars get trashed.
And why a deformable barrier? Because it simulates collisions between cars much more accurately. The Mercedes E-Class got a surprisingly low 3 out of 4 stars because of injuries to the driver's feet.
As you can see, quite a lot of deformation, what we like.
Because it absorbs the mass.
Consumes energy, that's right. If you see the excursion of the left front wheel to the firewall and into the footwell area, we don't like that. The footwell area has been deformed and reduced. The brake pedal excursion rearwards was considerable, and that the risk of having injuries on foot and ankle is great.
Even though it had door-mounted airbags fitted as standard, protection against the side impact wasn't the best in the group. The Audi A6, another 3-star car. The body shell stayed stable, but it was criticised for hard areas which could cause damage to knees, legs and pelvis. The imprint of the dummy's face on the airbag shows that the bag performed well. The Volvo S70, marketed as one of the safest cars. This was another surprise. The design of its side impact protection was highly commended, but it earned only 3 stars, mainly because of low knee protection. Frank, this isn't very good. In my accident, I'm pressing hard on the brake and the clutch. My knees are up here. And also, my passenger space, my survival space is being eroded.
Well, there is some reduction of the survival space, of course, but it's still enough to survive. As you can see, the windscreen pillar has come inwards quite a distance. And as you can see, the footwell area has been reduced quite considerably.
But there were 4 stars for the Toyota Camry. Good performance in the side impact test lifted its score, but again, in the frontal test there was a serious risk of injury to the upper legs, pelvis, knees and feet. The BMW 5 Series fared quite well despite potential thigh, knee and pelvis injuries.
Here we've got the front wheel quite far back, pushing the bulkhead, the firewall up and the pedals. My knees are pinioned under the steering wheel, so I'm going to have ankle, knee and pelvis injuries, and this is one I wouldn't have walked away from.
Another surprise was that the rear passenger door was flung open in the test. Not good news for anyone unbelted in the back. For an old design, Vauxhall's Omega scored well, but if it had had side airbags as standard, it would have scored 4 stars, not 3. On low-spec Omegas, side airbags aren't even an option, and without them there's a greater risk of injury from side impact. So if you're buying one, do make sure it's got all the bags. The Saab 9.5. This one came out as the safest of the lot, scoring well for frontal and top marks for impact from the side. More importantly, it's probably the only one of the 7 you would have walked away from unaided. But strangely enough, Saab, despite the 9.5 doing so well, reckon that even the Ncap tests don't go far enough.
This test shows that if a manufacturer really wants to achieve good passive safety for his car, he can achieve it.
You might be shocked to see these large luxury cars looking so mangled and twisted. But remember, the more a car crumples, the more impact is absorbed. And the more energy the car takes, the less is passed on to you. So big cars are safer than little ones. But if you thought all this crash testing was done by governments, think again, because it's all independent, and it works. Because without it, we would not now have side airbags as standard on the new VW Golf, and we wouldn't know that the Volvo S70 isn't as crash resistant as a Toyota Camry. These things we need to know. But there's a dark side to all this, and that is that all these 7 luxury cars did not perform particularly well on pedestrian safety. So while you, me and our crash test dummies are relatively safe inside our cars, it's when we step out of them that things get really dangerous.
I'll stand in front of you.